The epidemic in Manzhouli, Inner Mongolia, is severe, and the area has been designated as a high-risk area.
The CCP announced all areas will be lifted out of poverty by the end of 2020, ignoring that 600 million people's income is only 1,000 RMB per month.
More than 4,000 chemical paint factories went bankrupt. The CCP's economy is collapsing.
An Australian lawmaker called for a boycott of Chinese goods. CCP's media published an op-ed to slam him.
Harvard Professor Vogel claimed that Biden will bring a new opportunity to the Sino-U.S. relationship, called on the U.S. to recognize Communist China's contribution to the world.
Hua Chunyin. The Meng Wanzhou incident was a political incident planned by the U.S. to stymie China's tech development.
The U.S. published an annual report denouncing the national security law for Hong Kong. The CCP Hong Kong office retorted, "This is nonsense interfering in China's domestic affairs."
The manager of JD, Liu Qiangdong, resigned. The CCP madly plundered private entrepreneurs' wealth.
CCP tightened up censoring on social media. TikTok censored more than 1 billion banned posts every day.
The epidemic continued to spread in Hong Kong. 82 new cases of the CCP-Virus were reported.
CCP blamed the pandemic on frozen food at the Jiaozhou Qingdao. An asymptomatic virus carrier who worked with the frozen food was found. All persons who had contact with him had to take the virus testing, and the scene was crowded. Everyone put down their works to participate in nucleic acid testing. Everyone had detailed report card with information such as work locations and phone numbers. The line of people appeared endless, like the crowd of travelers during the Chinese New Year.
On December 1st, during the 180th press conference by Beijing's Coronavirus Prevention Task Force, the spokesperson, Gao Xiaojun, said the rumor online about a local virus case in Beijing was not true.
My family left our mob outside. The urban management officers took it away. My mother asked them to return the mob, but they refused. There was a dispute, and the officers beat up my mother. My sister tried to film the incident with her cell phone, but her phone was snatched and thrown away by the officers. According to Mr. Li, the urban management officers already left but came back to beat up his father. Passing by asked the officers to go away, but somehow they came back, and there was another quarrel. A dozen officers broke into my home, dragged my father to a place without a security camera, and beat him up. My father had 3 broken ribs and a concussion. My sister also assaulted. The journalist made a phone call to the local branch, but their phone was turned off. The incident is still being investigated so far.
The CCP wanted to replace Buddha. They asked Buddhist monks to swear an oath to the CCP flag. We solemnly swear to be loyal to the CCP, loyal to the country, to love the leader, to love the people, to uphold the truth, to promote justice, to be a good citizen, to be a qualified newcomer. We swear to devote our lives to communism.
At the Youhao International Apartment in Nanchong City, Sichuan, the homeowners protested but were suppressed by cops in black uniforms.
The CCP's propaganda on education is more blatant than its propaganda on poverty elimination. They claimed their education has reached the level in medium to high-income countries. Bureaucrats in the Education Ministry said the major goals in the 13th Five-Year Plan were fulfilled on time.
各级教育普及程度均达到或超过中高收入国家平均水平。
“13+5”时期累计达到52.5万人，建立了覆盖全学段的学生资助政策体系，累计资助贫困学生3.91亿人次， 资助金额达到了7739亿元。
Li Jiheng, Minister of Civil Affairs, recently wrote that China's population development has entered a critical turning point, affected by many facts. The willingness of a right-age population to give birth is low. The total fertility rate fell below the warning line. Official data show that the number of births in China has been declining for several years. Many netizens said they cannot afford to have children. They also said the women's consciousness in modern society has increased. The high risk associated with childbirth make people retreat.
The CCP's public security officers openly frozen private accounts and withdraw funds without a court decision. We found that the money from the fraudulent account entered your account. You can either bring us the money, otherwise we must freeze your account. Ms. Zhang's bank card received 100,000 yuan on October 2nd, which is a normal foreign trade payment. Her case is not an individual case. Many merchants in Yiwu International Trade City told reporters that their bank accounts were also frozen.
Before there wasn't a capital market, the corruption of CCP officials was measured in millions. But with the capital market, the corruption of CCP officials have been measured in hundreds of millions. Who are the real beneficiaries of this market? It is those very few people who have inside information. They have resources and the power to complete the so-called recapitalizations and capital acquisitions. If you want to make money here, it is called a Chinese dream because you are dreaming.
And the resistance? Attorney General William Barr, who has been absent for weeks and weeks, telling the Associated Press that the U.S. attorneys and FBI agents who have followed up on complaints of specific voter fraud across the country have produced nothing. To date, we have not seen fraud on a scale, he said, that could have affected a different outcome in the election. For the Attorney General of the United States to make that statement, he is either a liar or a fool or both. He may be perhaps compromised. He may be simply unprincipled, or he may be personally distraught or ill. But in no way can he honestly stand up before the American people and say that the FBI has, with any integrity or intensity, investigated voter fraud in this country and then say it did not amount to anything. Because what we are hearing just from the eyewitnesses in state legislative hearings, forget all of the rest, those eyewitnesses in state legislative hearings across the country tell the truth. And it's a story of election fraud, elections rigged to deny the will of the majority in this country.
Vice President Biden broke his foot playing with his dog. It seems a little odd to me. John Cardillo, a guy I know in South Florida, he says this: Donald Trump did 5 rallies a day, sleeping about 4 hours a night, while Joe Biden broke his foot petting a dog. I don't know if he's up for the long haul, if you know what I mean.
Well, I hope he gets well, but it's certainly reflective of how the media covered these two men. With Donald Trump, they were like pit bulls. And with Joe Biden, the media's more turned into a group of lapdogs. I'm more concerned about the people Joe Biden would potentially surround himself with. It is the America Last, China First crowd. It is the establishment trying to reconstitute their power within the White House. Donald Trump really was a threat to the establishment in both parties. And now you see the seediest parts of both the Democrat establishment and the Republican establishment trying to work together. And I think that puts our people last, and it's what we got to fight against.
Reaction, 2 months worth of CNN editorial calls. Number one, what do you think we're going to hear on these things? And if you're Jeff Zucker right now, what are your thoughts?
Well, Zucker's on the outs. AT&T is going to boot him. That'll happen shortly after Christmas. So, I mean, that's a fait accompli. I think you'll hear on the CNN morning call anti-Trump stuff. I don't know the extent of it. However, I don't think there's anyone in the country that believes CNN is looking for the truth or is a legitimate journalistic enterprise. This will pretty much nail that down because the morning call, for people who don't understand, all news agencies do this, and it sets the editorial tone of the day, what certain shows are going to do, who's going to be interviewed, how they should be interviewed. It'll be interesting to see how dictatorial the managers at CNN are over their report.
New York Times reporting on Joe Manchin, and they were interviewing him in his office, and he was working on the coronavirus stimulus package. He thinks $1.2 trillion is acceptable, which is half of what his party was pushing, but he is more of a moderate and wants to work with Republicans. Brian interviewed a lady who owns a restaurant earlier on our show. She said that she needs to lay off some employees, but she can't do it this close to Christmas. And she said a pregnant woman was in her office crying, saying, please don't lay me off. And she's refusing to do that, but they're not making any money because she owns a restaurant. People need help. What's the latest?
Yeah, what's the latest is Joe Manchin needs to go have a discussion with Nancy Pelosi, who has been fundamentally unserious in a way that's irresponsible and, quite frankly, disgusting, that she resumes the House, puts the House back in session. And what are the bills she puts forward? About legalizing marijuana, about going after Tiger King and regulating the use of tigers, instead of focusing on the American people and the relief that's needed. Her stimulus bill was chock full of, guess what, mail-in voting regulations to try to secure Democrat power in the halls of Congress. While this president said, Nancy Pelosi, you won't negotiate with me? Well, guess what? I'll do protections from evictions. I'll do more funding for unemployment insurance via executive order. He's been serious while Nancy Pelosi has been derelicting in her duty, and she does not deserve to be Speaker ever again.
We're here with Mayor Giuliani, President Trump's legal team. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona for the hearing. What should we expect to hear today, sir?
Well, what you should expect to hear is another group of witnesses like the ones in Pennsylvania that put the lie to the Democrat propaganda that there's no evidence. There's tons of evidence that they stole the election in Arizona, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Nevada. Each of those places, thousands and thousands of Republicans were kept away from seeing any of these mail-in ballots against the law, not just for fun. It was done because the mail-in ballots are fraudulent. And we'll show that the machine company they were using, Dominion, is a machine company that really, its real expertise is how to change the vote, not how to count the vote. That's been true for 10 years. Why they would hire this company, with the horrendous record it has, turned down by Texas, at one point thrown out of Chicago. Why? The only reason you'd hire this company is you were negligent, didn't do any due diligence. You just go on the internet. It's been cleaned up a little now. You just go on the internet and you can see its connection to Venezuela. So there are a lot of things that are going to come out today.
And what we saw
tremendous inaccuracies in Maricopa County. There's no question, and I think our statistical analysts will point that out. President Trump won Arizona by a fairly good margin, and it was stolen from him. Mostly in Maricopa County, somewhat in Pima County, both with just out-and-out fraud, keeping the inspectors away, and then some manipulations of the machine, which we don't have the full scope of yet because they won't let us see the machines. So my vote is only as good as the integrity of Dominion and all the hackers that exist that can get into the Dominion machine.
Your vote is not as secure as your Venmo account.
Pardon me? Say that one more time.
Your vote is not as secure as your Venmo account.
Can you think of any reason why anyone would hire them to count votes in the United States?
I could postulate a lot of...
Are any of them good reasons?
They have a strong lobby. They work with the government. They work with state government agencies, and they've got the infrastructure to sell their services.
So when we're talking about, it was Mr. Krebs? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. He stated the most secure election in history. He stated we're not connected to the internet. He stated no votes leave this country. This is all things he's stated publicly.
It's all on the CISA website, correct?
Right. So are you willing to say under oath that you have seen the connection to the internet. You have seen it go offshore to Germany, Frankfurt. Are these things that you have personally seen and can say that is not true?
Our white hat hackers, yes, they have that traffic in the packets.
So why would he make that kind of comment, do you think?
Either not knowing, believing the myth, or not wanting the truth to be known.
Thank you.
This iteration process, again, the computer was done, and the only one that we were able to come close to matching was this. And I want everyone to look at this carefully. So out of all the potential universe, which we've done, and we're going to continue doing this, by no means is this done, we find that the interesting possibility we find here is when the Democrat percentage is 130% Mr. Biden and negative 30% Mr. Trump, and the Republican percentage is 0, 100, the Independent is 30%, 58%, Libertarian 0, 60, 60, 0. But what's extraordinary about this graph, again, we went through many iterations, it matches perfectly, near perfectly. The slopes match, the curves match, the shape match. So what this tells us is that this demographic distribution of allocation of party affiliations is what can generate this. And I find it highly implausible because this means that Mr. Biden got 130% of Democrat voters and negative 30%, and President Trump got negative 30%.
That's Dr. Shiva from MIT. Wow. I tell you, across the board, you had Phil Waldron there talking about hackers and talking about Krebs's happy talk on 60 Minutes. Not pressed at all with one tough question on 60 Minutes. One softball after another, not challenged whatsoever. And I got to tell you, I thought Phil Waldron did a great job. I thought Dr. Shiva did a great job. I thought Rudy did a great job. It's still going. We may cut in the team in Denver and Vish are monitoring what's going on there. I want to bring in now is Jack Posobiec on. We're going to get Jack Posobiec here in a moment to talk about Pennsylvania. Greg, give us exactly what's the latest on Pennsylvania.
So the resolution that was announced on Friday night did formally get introduced into the state government committee. So it's been referred to that committee, and we'll see what the next steps are, whether or not there will be hearings, and to Boris's point, what mechanical issues can be undertaken in the state legislature now that this has been formally introduced. And I've said this.
Is it too late to have hearings, though? I'm getting my phone's blowing up.
All these places, these military bases, such as their consulates and embassy in the Bahamas, underground, several floors, several tens of meters, enormous underground space, several times bigger than the structure above. For what and why? The underground is used for surveillance, to spy on the U.S. Navy base Key West, which is a base under Miami for military aircraft and submarines. It's called Key West. Remember that place? All submarines traveling between Florida and Cuba. It's a strategic location for the U.S., and the CCP is spying on it from the Bahamas. They can track missiles, submarines, spy on the U.S. basically. And what are surrounding the CCP's Bahamas base? The CNOOC's large oil tankers. On the lower parts of those tankers, which is still 20 to 30 meters in height, are filled with military equipment. In the Middle East, Persian Gulf, Djibouti, Red Sea, Africa, those things are everywhere. The CNOOC is a platform for espionage, and Americans just came to realize that, including the waters around Taiwan. There are many ships with international names, but are in fact spy ships controlled by the CNOOC. Another thing is the money laundering. The CNOOC's money laundering system is the CCP's third wallet. Do you understand? That's why the CNOOC and ZTE are big deals. Also, Zhongwaijian Construction Design, China State Construction Engineering, are CNOOC's partners. They built the consulates and embassies used for espionage. Companies with words such as China, Sino in their names are all CCP's platforms for espionage.
Two new COVID-19 cases in Singapore, both imported. Japan will give free coronavirus vaccines to all its residents under a bill passed on Wednesday. U.S. panel says healthcare workers must get COVID-19 vaccine first. U.S. legislature float new $908 billion coronavirus aid package. The UK on Wednesday became the first country in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for use. Trump says he'll veto defense bill unless Section 230 is terminated. United Airlines, American non-stop flights to Shanghai. The U.S. House of Representatives are expected to pass legislation this week that could prevent some Chinese companies from listing their shares on U.S. exchanges unless they adhere to U.S. auditing standards.
Dear mama, are you okay over there? Your son is crying and missing you, and sees you in his dreams. You sent Drake down to CCP, cause it's God's will, it's God's will. So I'll wait for you, and I'll see you when we get in the CCP, yeah.